So EKLIPSE is a project funded by the European Commission under its Horizon 2020 programme. It is a very unusual project because the aim of the project is to develop a mechanism which lasts after the life of the project. And that mechanism is to support decision-making in an evidence-informed way. And this particular exercise at the moment, there was a question received from the French Ministry of the Environment about the design of green space in cities, because they were interested in the design of green space to promote human mental health and well-being. So what we did was we took that question from them and we scoped it. We looked at what evidence already existed. We worked with them. We refined the question, and then we asked the community if there were individuals willing to join this expert group to help answer that particular question.
It's very important for the French Ministry because it's a part of the National Action Plan, and actually that's a topic of very high importance for other countries as well. They really wanted to have the support of scientific knowledge in order to make the best possible decision, and they want to know whether we have some scientific knowledge or good expert knowledge to know how to recommend some design or management of green space in urban areas in order to have beneficial effects on mental health and well-being. So obviously as a scientist you consider the two aspects. You also want to take into account detrimental effects, if there are any, so that you can tell don't go that way. But for them what is important is to try to alleviate suffering and mental distress in urban citizens by providing nature-based solutions, because the topic is at the crossroads between ecology and conservation, biology, also landscape design, landscape architecture, city design and planning, urban planning, and health. So it was obvious that we needed experts from the three big disciplines.
For applied research, interdisciplinarity is very, very important because on the ground everything has to come together. I think from a practical point of view, it's easier to redesign a green area than to create more green space in the existing urban fabric. So it's easier to act upon that type of information than just to say, okay, you need to double the amount of green space in your city. That might help, but it's very difficult to realize in practice. And from the scientific side, you could say, well, there has been done already quite a lot of research on amounts of green space, numbers of trees, etc., etc. And it's time to move beyond that point. At the same time, it hasn't been done a lot because it's very difficult to get information of that type on the qualities aspects of the green space. It's more difficult to get that type of information than just purely the quantity, which usually you can get easily by GIS or remote sensing. There have already been done quite a lot of studies, reviews, and I think most of the reviews conclude that there is a strong need for looking into the causality of the relationship between contact with green space nature on the one hand and health on the other hand, and also that there is a need to look at the qualities, the type of green space, and also about the type of interaction with the green space. Is just looking at, is it being surrounded with green space, is it really interacting with the nature, gardening, does that matter a lot? I think in general those are the issues, and I'm curious myself if we are going to be able to come up with more specific recommendations regarding the gaps.
We've had those spaces in cities for a very long time, But now with a changing environment, it's all the more urgent to think about how they're designed to really make a difference for human mental health and well-being. We will share the outputs with all interested parties. The process is transparent and the outputs are transparent. We don't submit confidential reports. Everything is completely open. In fact, our reports are drafted and put out for review before we finalise them. Although in this case it was the French Ministry of the Environment that asked the question, all the questions that we deal with have to have European relevance. So it was clear that this did have European relevance. While we hope that the results of this exercise will be used by the French Ministry of the Environment to give policy guidelines for green space in France, and we hope that others elsewhere in Europe will look at the outputs, and that will make a difference in future designs of green space.
Well, the lesson learned is that each time you have a face-to-face meeting, you make huge progress, and it really helps compared to email exchanges or Skypes, because people have time to exchange, have time to ask questions. So we made huge progress in clarifying the topic again, even if sometimes we went back to previous discussions, but I think we made progress again with that. Clarifying the elements that were needed to move forward, because now we have the financial support from the World Health Organization, which is confirmed, so we really need to opt for a systematic review approach, so it requires a lot of steps to be clarified so that we are going that way. So we made good progress in this direction. The challenge is to try to get most of the results by the end of the year, 2018, but it's going to be a highly expected report, so we'll see.